But then something was saying, don't go any further. And I just kept going further and further. A cache of carefully preserved, yellowing love letters addressed to Rooney, her mother's nickname as a girl. In the hierarchy of family secrets devised by author John Bradshaw, concealing a child's real parent is the second most dangerous, just below incest. For Priscilla, at her mother's knee, she was learning that secrets and lies are acceptable and that the truth can be dangerous. Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Jennifer. I'm so happy you're back for chapter 6 from Child Bride, the untold story of Pricilla Presley by Suzanne Finstad. Now, if you haven't caught up on any of the videos, I will link the Child Bride playlist below this video. You really do need to get caught up. Of course, you can definitely jump right in here if you haven't listened to any of the other chapters. But if you're like me and you want the entire backstory, you want to start from the very beginning of Pricilla Presley's story, you're going to want to go back to chapter 1. So look for that in the video description. Now, we talked about chapter 5 in the last video. We talked about Elvis's fascination with his first female co-star on the big screen, the beautiful 10 Commandments actress, Deborah Paget. And just Elvis was just enamored with this woman. And apparently, according to the author, and Suzanne did interview Deborah Paget herself for the book. This book was written in 1997. Apparently, according to Deborah, Elvis asked Deborah to marry him. If you want to know more about that, you need to go back to chapter 5. And in chapter 5, we also talk about Priscilla Presley's infatuation with Elvis Presley. Now, that is a very important thing to throw out there in the beginning of this episode, because Priscilla's narrative has been for decades that when she met Elvis, she wasn't particularly fond of him. She wasn't a huge fan. She was just, she liked him, was interested in meeting him. But this book flies in the face of that narrative that Priscilla has been throwing out there for all this time. This book says that she was indeed a huge Elvis fan, and she goes into Priscilla's love and fascination with Elvis in this book, and we talk about that in chapter 5. And that is the buildup where we find ourselves now with chapter 6 called Secrets Revealed. So if you want to know all the backstory, jump into the beginning of this playlist all the way back to chapter 1. You'll get up to speed. But here we go with chapter 6, Secrets Revealed. The apparent existence of two Priscillas became more evident as Pricilla Beaulieu entered junior high in 1957. She was still outwardly demure, but just below the surface lurked the naughty Priscilla. She'd ask me to go to the movies with her, recalled Taylor Keene, and then ditch me at the drive-in to meet the high school boys. It was Rooney all over again. Now, Rooney is her mother's childhood nickname. All the more reason to get in on those early episodes if you haven't already. Priscilla and Pam, that was Priscilla's best childhood friend in elementary and junior high school. Priscilla and Pam, but especially Priscilla, attracted older boys. Soldiers on the base, grown men, ogled Priscilla at 12 and a half. The magnet was Priscilla's dainty, doll-like features. It was more her face than anything else, agreed Cal White, who dated Priscilla in Austin. She had the prettiest features I've ever seen in my life. As her friend Evangeline put it, Priscilla was obsessed with her appearance. A 7th grade teacher recalled Priscilla opening her mirrored compact in class more often than her textbook. The Beaulieus remained in the same city for 3 consecutive years, giving their daughter's life a semblance of permanence. Yet Priscilla herself was not stable. She was still intensely competitive with her best friend, had become quite aggressive around boys, and was developing a finely honed ability to get what she wanted by manipulating others. As one close Texas friend put it, "You like her, you enjoy her company, but you can't feel 100% sure of Priscilla. That's just part of knowing her. She was kind of like a little honeypot," said Mary Clements, who lived across the street, describing Priscilla at 13. She liked older boys, hoping to attract them and succeeding, until that summer when everything changed. It began like any other summer evening at the Beaulieus. Priscilla was babysitting for Dawn and Michelle, then 6 and 3, while Paul and Anne attended a party. Paul and Anne are her parents, and Paul is her stepfather. Bored, she wandered into her parents' bedroom and began snooping through the closet. Her eyes fell on an old trunk buried in the back. Inside, folded neatly on top, was an American flag, the type presented to widows of servicemen. Priscilla's heart raced, and I kept thinking I shouldn't be doing this. It was too private. But as I was exploring, I kept wanting to go on. Under the flag, she found a cache of carefully preserved, yellowing love letters addressed to Rooney, her mother's nickname as a girl, from someone named Jimmy. Beside them were her mother's passionate replies. And on the bottom was a sea of pictures. She found a photograph of Anne beside a dark, handsome stranger, as baby Priscilla lay in her arms. On the back, in her mother's handwriting, were the words, Mommy, Daddy, Priscilla. And I kept finding more pictures and finding certificates, she recalled several decades later. Now, Suzanne Finstad, the author of Child Bride, interviewed Priscilla Presley for this book. Priscilla Presley at one point stopped cooperating with Suzanne, I think when she saw where the direction of the book was going, but these are Priscilla's words that Suzanne is relaying, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so Priscilla's going, right? She's going through the box. She's finding more and more pictures and finding certificates, a birth certificate, baptismal records, finding my life that was different from what I knew, that she was face to face with the secret. She was not who she had thought she was. It was both her greatest fantasy and her deepest, darkest fear. First, you go into denial. It's somebody else. And then you go into shock that you've been betrayed. What was this that I was discovering? Now, if you haven't watched the first episodes in this series, we talk about how Priscilla's mother and her stepfather kept the identity of Priscilla's real father from her for a little over a decade. Her father was a pilot that died in a plane crash. Priscilla didn't know that her real father had perished in that plane crash. She thought that her stepfather was her father. And we go into that. We talk about that. I share my thoughts and opinions on why I think that is so just sad and deeply manipulative to hide a child's past from them. There was a lot of stuff in the comments about it, but so that's what we're referring to. But if you want to know more about the circumstances surrounding her father's death and all that, that's all in earlier chapters. Okay, so she phones her mom who's at the party. I needed someone to tell me the truth. Anne Iverson Wagner Beaulieu raced home to her daughter alone. She did not tell Paul Beaulieu she was leaving the party. After years of denial, Anne arrived at the house to find Priscilla half crazed. Well, yeah, rightly so. She calmed her daughter and then told Priscilla the truth about their past. She had been married to a handsome pilot named James Wagner who died in a plane crash, and he was Priscilla's real father. And she said that he was wonderful, recalled Priscilla. He had loved me, and that she had met my father, Paul Beaulieu, her stepfather, a few years later and married him, and that he was my father. He adopted me. Priscilla would later say that discovering the truth about her identity from a hidden trunk at the age of 13 was a devastating blow. In the hierarchy of family secrets devised by author John Bradshaw, concealing a child's real parent is the second most dangerous, just below incest. For Priscilla, the discovery of the lie was almost worse than the lie itself. Her mother, the person she trusted most, had betrayed her, deceived her. And this is exactly what I was talking about, the psychological trauma and damage that can happen to a childhood that has been lied to. I mean, I go into all of that and, where I talk about how it was always going to be a traumatic and gut-wrenching conversation, but it was a conversation that needed to be had when Priscilla came of age. And I just don't understand why Priscilla's mother and her stepfather couldn't have come to her in love and safety and just say, this is the truth, but you're still a wonderful gift. It was a wonderful gift that, your father was in your life for as long as he was, even though it wasn't that long, but, he loved you. And that doesn't mean that your stepfather, your adoptive father, doesn't love you any less. There's just so many ways that this could have been handled. And there were a few of you in the comments that kind of came for me and was like, well, these were 1950s conventions. Like, you can't really, put that on them, through today's outlook and all that. But I just kind of feel like the right thing is the right thing, no matter when it happened. And to To keep the identity of her real father from her is denying Priscilla a part of herself. That is why she felt so devastated. Previous chapters go into her feelings, even when she was 5 or 6 years old, her kind of like torment, this almost like lingering depression she had, instinctively feeling like she didn't belong in her family, like she was different from her other brothers and sisters. Well, now we know why, but I don't know, this could have all been avoided. And moreover, it teaches a child that secrets and, maintaining the status quo so as to not offend and walking on eggshells is okay. And that it's, something that needs to happen, where it's not, it's unhealthy. But anyway, I know I'm going off, but this is just a really sad thing to know that happened to Priscilla. And I really just feel for Priscilla to have to go through this at such a tender age, to feel betrayed and to feel like so much was denied her in the way of the truth of where she came from. So just feel bad for her. And I think, as we'll see as the book goes on, it sets up Priscilla for the way that she lived her life in all of the years after, shrouded in secrecy, her keeping herself from people, her willingness to be quiet and not speak up and not tell the truth about who she really is. We'll obviously see that as we go into the book, but yeah, it's all rooted here in this childhood trauma, and it's heartbreaking. So we talked about Priscilla's mom, and her mom tried to console Priscilla, telling her that she had been haunted by the secret all these years, that she had wanted to tell her beautiful daughter the truth, but that she'd been afraid. The critical word was fear of upsetting Paul. That's her stepfather. The big fear was my father, Priscilla admitted. He really looked at me as his daughter, and it was very important to my mother protecting him, protecting his feelings and his sensitivity. The fear was that anything like this would maybe separate us, so let's just keep it the way it is. Again, I understand that everyone has their sensibilities about the situation, but the most important thing is truth, and truth delivered in love. I don't know. It's so difficult to wrap my head around this. How is it? Are you that insecure in of yourself and in of your place in the family as the father and the caregiver, so as to deny Priscilla that truth? It's so upsetting. Barely dared to speak of her beloved first husband to his own daughter. Priscilla would later explain that Anne doesn't want to really do anything that she thinks may sway me from my adopted father. Why was Anne so protective of Paul Beaulieu? The purpose of family secrets, according to author John Bradshaw, is to preserve the status quo. Was Anne hiding something else? Some more dangerous family secret? Her distraught reaction suggested that possibility. Priscilla realized she had a crucial decision to make. She could either allow the truth to surface and accept the consequences, or protect her mother and herself by perpetrating the lie. It's a very devastating impact that one has to deal with, Priscilla acknowledged years later. I decided to let it go because my father, I could never hurt him. So the decision was, let's not ever discuss this, and it will never come out. The very existence of her real father became a forbidden topic. It was the formative moment of Pricilla Beaulieu's young life. She was learning that secrets and lies are acceptable and that the truth can be dangerous. She put away the trunk that contained the mysteries of her childhood, and she and her mother never talked about it again. That's rough. Priscilla still had no idea she had paternal grandparents in Pennsylvania who were still mourning her 10-year absence. Jimmy's mother harbored no animosity whatsoever toward Anne. I used to think, if I could only know where they are, there's no anger in my heart. I just wanted to know. The gold locket Jimmy had given Anne, which Anne presented to Priscilla as a memento. Priscilla wore it around her neck thereafter. Hidden inside the locket was a tiny photograph of her real father, dark and handsome in his pilot's uniform. He would become my guardian angel. That July, according to Carol Ann Hine, she and Priscilla went to see King Creole, Elvis Presley's latest movie. As they were leaving the cinema, they caught the glimpse of the back of a dark-haired young man. According to the theater manager, it was Elvis Presley. He was stationed in Fort Hood. Manager told us Elvis had asked if he could come in after the lights were out and sit in the back so no one would see him. Priscilla Presley and Elvis Presley were circling ever closer to each other. So that is the end of chapter 6. Chapter 7 is going to be called Sex Pot. What do you guys think about this one, chapter 6? What did you guys think about how Priscilla's mother and stepfather had concealed the identity of her real father from her for so long? Do you agree with me about just the devastation and the trauma and how it's so wrong and how it's unfathomable to me that they would do that to her. And I really do feel that it colored Priscilla's life moving forward. Let me know what you guys think about that down in the comments, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.